things of that nature. Always exciting to me when people were able to come together and just thinking about ways to continue to develop themselves in the area of health, business, and wealth and things of that nature. All the things that we should be thinking about in our culture and our community, because that's certainly what it's all about. So, folks, today we're going to have a great conversation, and it's going to be kind of engaging as best as possible. And we'll try to keep with the time, 6:08 now. Again, choose your enemies wisely. Have everyone had the opportunity to even purchase the book, either a physical copy of the book or a digital copy?
Yeah.
Everyone kind of sort of have the book for
Yeah.
the most part. Good stuff. Well, Patrick Bet David, as you guys know, is the author of the book. Primarily, it's a book about business planning for the audacious few, right? And he refers to business planning for the audacious few because it's kind of unique in the sense of it's not for everybody, but it's for a few, right? He's saying the audacious few. And as you get off into chapter 1 and 2, he kind of alludes to what he's referring to when he's talked about the audacious few, right? Because again, sometimes you guys might have heard the whole notion of the concept of many are called, but few are chosen. So when he talks about the few, what he's referring to are the few who's able to get their business and their lives in alignment with best practices and best ideas, bringing your emotional side with your logical side to make your business make sense, right? To bring the emotional side of you to the logical side to make your business make sense. So one of the things when I first started reading this particular book, just the introduction alone really just kind of sort of got my attention because in marketing, you hear people talk about the first thing to get people attention when they talk about marketing, you have to have a hook, right? And without something first getting someone's attention, that hook, I mean, it's like you lost them. So this book, he start off just strictly just hard hitting, like just from day one, he start off hard hitting. And we'll start with the very quote from the introduction. I know we're going number 1 and 2, but I believe anytime when you get off into a book, you have to really take out the time to figure out what the author is talking about, right? What's the mindset, what's the framework, what's they're working with, just so you can get a feel for what you're about to get yourself off into. So he start off saying with this quote, I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce the guy's name, but the quote itself is profound. He said, a wise man gets more use from his enemies than from his friends. Let's try that one more time. He said, a wise man gets more from his enemies than a fool from his friends. When I first read that, I'm like, wow, that's pretty profound, right? Because you really think about most people will choose a friend more so than an enemy. But this quote says that a wise man gets far more use from an enemy than he does his friends. And when you think about it from that standpoint, I mean, oftentimes we see on social media, I don't see it much anymore, but back in the day, you have a lot of people talking about I got haters or they hating on me, that sort of thing, as if it's always a negative to have people that's always talking stuff about you, right? But the truth be told, according to Patrick, that's not always true. It's not always true to believe that every time somebody might be critiquing you, criticizing you, that's a negative. In fact, according to this particular quote, that if we understand the purpose that idea or enemy serve, we can get far more use after having someone that's more of an enemy than we could a friend. Because sometimes a friend might not be truthful all the time, although they're a friend, right? They might not want to tell you the truth about a situation. They might not want to challenge you, that sort of thing. Or most importantly, they may not rub you in a way or touch you in a way in which you need to be touched to get your life on track, to get you moving in the right direction. So that was the first point that really just hooked you from just that point alone. And then he goes on to recall, right? He recalled a time in his life Well, his life was just not going anywhere, right? And most of us could kind of like probably relate to a time in our lives where you had little to no direction in your life. And he recalls going to a family function, and hopefully you guys remember this part in the introduction, because this really kind of set the stage as to this whole idea about choosing your enemies wisely. He began to talk about going to a family function with his dad, and bottom line, his dad was being fronted off. And I want to share just from this passage, just to kind of get us on track as to what we're talking about here. So I just want to read what it says. He writes, I remember hearing something like, referring to his dad. I remember hearing something like, Gabrielle Bet David, the brilliant chemist in Iran, now the 99-cent store cashier in America, twice divorced and still alone. He said the group of men around my dad had a good laugh. It was all true, but because my dad was a brilliant chemist and now worked at the 99-cent store where he was frequently robbed at gunpoint. Plus, he really had gotten divorced twice from the same woman, which was my mom. Even though this guy didn't have any ill intention, I could see on my dad's face that he was hurt. He looked smaller to me. Something about that man's laughing at my dad, and maybe more importantly, the look of shame on my dad's face produced a fury in me. And that's the point, guys. He said the look on this guy's face and the laughter of these men produced a fury in me that I had never felt before. He said, I was intense back then, but this brought another level of rage. His point, he said, nobody should talk to my dad that way. For all the things he's done for you, you're going to talk to him this way. This is not going to happen. We're out of here. So I just want to stop right there, because he's setting the stage as to like what triggered him. You know, we talk about a lot. You hear people talk about triggers. So he's telling you early on how he began to deal with this notion, the concept of an enemy. So because he went to a family function and pretty much a dude just insulted his pops. He insulted his pops because his pops used to be the man back in Iran. He was a chemist. He was successful. He was family oriented. He was that guy, right? But then during the Iraqi-Iran war, when they came to America, they had to start all over. So he lost everything. And sometimes in life, people sometimes they might not be sensitive to your unique situation, what you might be going through, and they might say something and it might literally crush you if you're not careful, right? So he said he looked at his dad, and his dad literally was crushed by what he was hearing, but yet his dad couldn't act like he couldn't act like he felt some kind of way by those words, but certainly he knew his dad felt some kind of way. But he had the utmost respect for his pops, and that's the reason why he came to his dad's defense. And I dig that. A son literally coming to defense for his dad in front of other family members who may not be aware of the hurt that this dude was carrying around because he was experiencing hardship in life. But the point is, he said that at that particular point, that dude became his enemy. He was a family, but he used that moment to kind of fuel him to kind of get his life on track. So here's a question, folks. I've been talking for a while here. I want you guys to think about this, and we want to do some engagement. What do you think in that moment? What do you think in that moment was going on with the father and son? Or more importantly, do you think the son reacting at that moment, telling his dad it's time to bounce, it's time to get out of here? Do you think the son was overreacting? Just some engagement. If that was you in that situation and that was your family, and somebody just literally fronted you off because you just lost your job, they knew you was bankrupt, whatever. You know, you was having a hard time. Do you think the son was overreacting, or do you feel how he must have felt in that moment?
So when I read the story, and like after when it had happened, I remember like the dad like get going off on him like why would you do that, like that wasn't your place to do. So I understood the dad's reaction to what his son did, but like based upon the stemming of the whole movie, or the whole book, I should say, he was just talking about how you supposed to gear that energy with a logical perspective as well. So nothing was wrong for him to feel that way because that is his dad, and you protective over your close family. Like you don't want anything to happen to your close people or make them feel a certain type of way. So he's right for feeling that way, but maybe the reaction to how he dealt with it probably came off a little bit too aggressive or something like that. Yeah.
Sure. I don't know who else has raised their hand. Who wanna?
They,
David.
It's Davion. I'm not sure how to change my name on here, but so I'm a new bookie and I haven't had the opportunity to read the chapter right. But based off of your question and hearing what happened initially as a son with no children, like based off the information that I have right now in the moment, and knowing how much of a stand-up guy how much of a stand-up guy my father was back in Iran, and for somebody just to step on his foot in front of me, I don't know if I won't react the same way. It's like, hold on, pops. Now, if he just knocked me out, at least I got him tired a little bit, so you could be able to come on through. Like, but but hearing that, like, just me having that information, and it sounded like it was some tension and friction in the moment. I don't know if I wouldn't step in for my dad, especially because he has done it for me literally. So it's
Right.
like I don't know. So
Yeah.
I understand what John was saying as far as like reading a little bit further and understanding like his dad coming to him, but just me just staying in that moment and
Yeah.
like, well, this is how I'm going to respond and see what happens. So
Yeah.
that's my feedback.
No,
Thank
that's real. Anybody else?
I would say, just reading through that same, like the passage, if you pinpoint a few words that actually stood out, he said, before he even said something, he said, I seen my father look a little smaller.
Mhm.
So he felt like he needed to protect his dad. And I think that that's the dynamic of a father, son, father duo. Like, you seen your father get smaller, and as a man you would never, like, I'm not a man, but personally you would never want to see your dad be belittled. And his dad sat there while everyone else laughed. So I don't think there was anything wrong with what he did, because he said everyone in the room chuckled. At this point, I need to get my pops up out of there. Like, but I also see, like, I don't think it's a right or wrong thing, but I also see, because if you read further, he said his dad was embarrassed about what had happened because he came to his defense at a party. Like, I don't need your protection, but then I also see why he did what he did as a son. So I think everything is necessary. Uh, in choosing his enemies as well. So I see that, but I don't think it was a right or wrong thing. But personally, I probably would have got my dad out of there as well if I seen my dad feel a little smaller based off circumstances.
Yeah, I think I love reading this story. It's so profound to me because there's so many moving dynamics in that. And you ask yourself, why does he even sharing that story with us, right? What's the takeaways? What does he want us to learn from that story? I think for me, what I've taken away from this whole story is that things in life, sometimes when you're talking about business, because we're still talking about business and we're talking about life, and what he's trying to introduce to us, the whole idea of you can't separate life and business from your emotions. You can't separate life and business from pain. And at that moment, he's seeing one of the most important human beings in his life in pain. And at that particular point, and this is his dad. Most time, a child don't feel as though they need to defend a parent. So at that particular time in his life, he felt as though, because he saw the pain of his dad, because his dad was the man at one point. Have you? And I don't know. Hopefully, you guys lived enough life or whatever. We all experience pain, and sometimes one thing about life, you never wish that someone was on top, and then they notice, then they just fall off. That's just like a miserable feeling. But that's life, guys, right? And here's the point: it's not the fall we have to learn how to get back up, and that's the point of life, right? Because sometimes we have challenges, we have difficult moments and things of that nature. And at this particular point, his dad was struggling with the getting back up part. His dad was still trying to, in a new country, trying to find his way. And clearly, because there was some hurt in his dad's eyes, he was struggling with the emotions as to what he was going through at that particular moment. Right. So what's the point? The point is, in terms of when you're talking about business, so oftentimes we think business is just a logical thing, and it's not. And that's his point. Business is just not logical. Business is not just about profit. Business is just not about what do you call it? Profit margin, marketing, sales goals, all those things that we hear that take place within the market setting. There's a lot of emotions that's tied up into that whole piece. And his point in telling a story is that ultimately he used that moment. He used that moment to begin to build a multi-million-dollar business because he used that to get him out the bed every morning. He utilized what happened to his dad as just motivation, as fuel, and it wasn't a petty thing. He didn't wish anything ill will on this guy, because a lot of times people will try to use individuals in this toxic energy. He didn't use this moment in a toxic way. He literally used it in the most healthiest way to kind of pretty much get his life on track. So let's think about that for a moment, guys, in terms of choosing your enemies wisely. Think about a time in your life that someone may have insulted you personally, or insulted somebody that was close to you, and how that made you feel, and how you can utilize that experience if your life is off track today to get back on track. Because that's the whole premise of the book, right? Choosing your enemies wisely. So think about it, right? Has a teacher ever said anything to you? Have an employer ever said anything to you? Like, you know what? I don't think you're the right person for the job. I don't think your skill set match. I don't think you had a right whatever, the right GPA, the right FICO score, the right whatever, and whatever rejection you ever felt in life. How do you utilize that information to propel you to greatness? Because that's his point, and that's the reason why he's sharing this story, because he utilized this event to get his life going. Because he said all he was doing at this particular time in his life was getting high and drunk. He had no direction at all until this moment, right? And it's triggered something in him. It's funny, right? When we hear people talk about triggering, I got triggered, whatever. And sometimes we hear people talk about that from a negative context. This dude is literally talking about how he got triggered, and now it actually produced something profound in his life. So I just wanted to share that point, and I don't want to label on that point, but that's literally right in the introduction of this particular in this particular book. So a couple of takeaways, guys, that we'll get from the introduction, chapter 1 in particular. One thing is this: how you can turn your challenges into strengths, right? How you can turn your challenges into strengths, and how you can use your enemies to fuel you. I said a lot about the whole enemy piece. Why don't one of you guys share some information with us relative to that? Have you ever experienced that? Have you ever seen that? Can you see how you can utilize a moment in your life like this, where you can take something as, I guess, mentally, emotionally challenging like this, that you might refer to as an enemy, and translate that and allow that to fuel you instead of defeat you? Can any of you guys connect with that idea? Do you mind sharing how you can take something? What you got, Davion? I think I see you.
So I'm from Mississippi, and if you know anything about American history, it was against the law for Black people to read and write. That was before I was even born, right? But when I was 16, I was working at this grocery store, and this older white dude, like, he basically just called me the N-word, right? And so I'm basically a child. I'm an adolescent, And I didn't know how to, you know, I was, you know, big and strong. I could have fought the old dude, whatever. He had gray hair, but it was like that wasn't my character. And so it was something I had to sit with. But I used that trigger because I'm a 90s baby. So we were singing about Dr. Martin Luther King in the kindergarten, you know. And so that peacefulness and knowing who I am and standing up straight. So I used that as a trigger, like even to this day, to be like, oh, it's people out here that still believes in the old world.
Mhm.
And so I just used it as a trigger to be like, oh, I thought, you know, because being a 32-year-old, me just thinking when I was growing up, like, oh, all that stuff that we was reading about, that was that don't exist anymore. And as soon as I got a little height on me, I got brought into reality that their world wasn't decimated just yet. And so for me, instead of me being bitter about it, I've used that to actually, because it was some anger, right? And so I used that anger to bring about positive change.
Good stuff. That's good, and that's what it's all about. Anybody else? That great story. Appreciate that share too, Davion. Anybody else have anything else to share in reference to that? Like how you've used pain, or how you could potentially use pain and see that as an enemy, and allow that to kind of like bring some positivity out of your life.
I would state that maybe, well, it's not maybe. In high school, I had my guidance counselor. Her name was Miss Atkins. Yes, I remember her name. Her name was Miss Atkins, and basically, like she was telling me, like basically, I was just an average student. I needed to go to like JUCO and not go to college at all. And honestly, I think my whole life, I won't say that I was like a weak reader, but I wasn't like the strongest reader, and it was like hard for me to like retain, like, you know, just like, because how my mind works, it goes all over the place. But now look at me in this book club. I have friends that's coming together over books, and I read every day. And I graduated college from a university, from one of the greatest HBCUs. And so that keeps me fired up, right? I get fired up when I think about Miss Atkins. I get fired up when people tell me that I'm not collegiate. I am collegiate. I am collegiate. Like collegiate is my name, and it doesn't come with having to be like maybe a straight A student or being able to comprehend like everybody comprehend. It's a way that I needed to be routed, and now I'm able to understand that I have to listen. Like I have the book on audiobook, but also I have the PDF file. So now it allows me to read in a whole nother universe. Like I get to see those things, and I get to be able to visualize it and hear it for myself. So yeah, she did me kind of wrong, but look at me now, right? I need to go and check her out.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny, Jeremy. Now, and that's real. That's very real, right? Because a lot of times we fight those moments in life, but you know, one of the greatest takeaways that I'm taking away from this book is that those moments that we feel have been the most painful moments, we have to learn to utilize that to our advantage. So, and his biggest point in terms of how you utilize these concepts for business building, that most businesses fail because they have the logic side of things. They know exactly what they want to get done, but they don't have the emotions that come with it. So the emotions that allow you to keep going. Like you gotta have, it gotta be some fire. You gotta have some fire, right? It has to be that reason, it has to be that passion. It can't just be about the money, right? Because that gets old, that gets tiring, and sometimes the money gets funny. And that's the point. When the money gets funny, then if you don't have that fire, if you don't have that passion, you don't have anything to keep you in the game. You don't have anything to keep you going. So now you out of gas. And typically at that particular point, that's when people give up on the business. So that's when people give up on life, not just business. One of the things I love about this book, because it's not just about business owner and business ownership. These ideas you apply to your life, because these are life concepts. I often tell people who's in a business space and trying to enter a business, all the business is a reflection of the owner. The business is a reflection of the individual who, or the leadership of that business. So you fix the leader, you fix the business. So he says something in one of the chapters about, I'm trying to get the exact phraseology because um, I think this is it. Yeah, it speaks to this. And this is what we're talking about, guys. He said, we spend so much time trying to figure out how to win, right? Even when we buy books, we go to seminars, we get coaching, right? That's the figuring out how to win. So check them out. He said, we spend so much time trying to figure out how to win that we, hold on, let me try one more time. I'm screwing it up. Let me read it. We spend so much time trying to figure out how to win. But maybe we need to look at why to win. Let me try it one more time because I screwed it up at first. So let's try it one more time, guys. I'll let you speak to it because I think it's very, very, very profound. And that's a huge distinction. We spend so much time trying how to win. We go to college, we're trying to figure out how to win. But maybe we should be spending more time looking for why to win. Not just the how, but why. Why? Like, why did you go to college? Why do you want to start that business? Why do you want to invest? Right? Why are you getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning? Why are you willing to stay up to 2 o'clock in the morning? The how, anybody could teach us the how, right? You can learn the how from mostly anybody. All this information on the internet, YouTube, they give it to us for free. They give you the how for free. But one thing people can't give us, they can't give us the why. Because the why is personal. Your why for winning is personal. Can't nobody could give me my why for why are you still in the game? Why are you still trying to why are you still trying to learn? Why are you still trying to develop yourself, John? That's personal. That's personal to me. And that's why I thought that the story that he shared early on, that's why he shared the story. He's trying to explain to us in the story why we even got to meet him, what his trigger point was. That dude is showing his dad was his why for winning. He said, y'all gonna know my name. Y'all gonna know my family name. Y'all gonna know that my dad is still that dude. Right? So that's the thing, right? So he said we spend a lot of time on the how, but we forget the why. And that's so important for us to spend time to, and we hear that. So here's the question. John, you say that. Makes sense. Good play on words. But how do we get to the why to win? How do I get in touch with that? Makes sense. How do we get in touch with that? In my estimation, one of the ways we get in touch with that is the same way he got in touch with his. Don't ignore your pain. Don't ignore what has happened to you. Don't ignore what somebody has said to you. Sit with that for a little bit. Because a lot of times what we think was pain and what we think was meant to destroy us, God is actually using that to actually benefit us. Right? So the why is just as important as the how. It's probably more important than the how, because everybody could tell us how, but that why is unique. How connected are you guys to your why? Like, why are you a part of this book club? Why are you guys reading? How connected are you to your why? Anybody? I know we going deep now. Yeah. Sometimes when we go deep like that and we open up the heart, it's like that. It's just silence.
I'll
Because
go.
there we go. We got
Why
a great soul.
me personally, improvement, growth, change, because still pretty young, but I've seen enough to know that I don't want to live like this. I've seen enough to know that your mentality must change for you to get to the stage that you want to go. And I feel like the book club that I'm in is going to help me do that, help me accomplish those goals. We're very driven. I love how everybody is very open about what they got going on and what they're trying to improve on. And yeah, I feel like if we work together, it'll get done. That's
Love
just
it.
my take on it. And yeah.
Love it. Love it. Love it. And you know what I heard, I heard a heart, and that's where getting connected to how why I come from. I heard that I'm into development. I'm tired of some things. And so when we begin to kind of like find the words to connect with what we're feeling, was taking steps closer to that why, and our why is becoming a little bit more we're bringing our why into focus, right? More clarity is taking place. Who else got something in terms of how connected are you to your why? Yeah, guys.
I
I'm
guess
sorry.
how connected am I to my why? I won't say if we're going on the scale, I would say definitely middle of the road. But then also that I'm probably taking away from myself as well. It's by saying that I would say that I'm super well, not super, but I would say that for the most part I am kind of connected to my why because I won't say that, oh well, I'm not where I should be, but when I think about where I'm going and when I think about like my life and continue to read the book and it's talking about connecting. I'm not, trying to go a little bit further off, but when he talked about connecting the dots backwards, and not erasing, your past, right? Or the things that you went through or not understanding what you went through, I would say that I'm more than likely very much so connected to my why because I would say even as a child, I did like weird things that's like, oh, I'm gonna cut out meat, or always try to have my friends come together to do certain things, or um, it was for a reason though. Like it's always been for a reason, me not understanding why, but now I'm trying to like connect the dots backwards to kind of figure out why exactly that I was doing that. But now I do because like even after college, like certain things has happened and I'm like, why am I going through this? Like why like struggle back and forth from being vegan, struggle back and forth with me even trying to figure out the finance part, and even like me being in a position that I am now, like I've learned so much. But now it's like appliance, me being able to apply that thing and why am I applying it and why am I doing the things that I'm doing today? So, and it's all kind of coming together.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's why we're all together today. In a sense, like being able to do this book club and actually share our hearts and share information and coming together to become better collectively. So, I would say that I have, um, 75% kind of connected to my why in a sense and why I do what I do. And hopefully I won't say that that's today or tomorrow or next week, next year, or even close to my deathbed to understand the totality and the whole connection of why I do what I do or why God sent me down here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Guys, I thought it was kind of important for us to. I'm sorry, Erica, what you got?
I was just gonna share why I was in a book club. So basically, because we talk about like business, finance, and spirituality, and I feel like a lot of those things are like areas I like the knowledge and experience in. So um, those are things we talk about, and how connected am I? If I was to put it on a scale, I give it like a 6 because I like to say I don't have enough time or I could be doing something else. But if I continue to think about my why, it pushed me to sit still and read the books.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff. And guys, I'm glad we're spending time to talk about this because that's really the crux of it all. We have somebody else. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, sorry. I wanted to say my why. I feel like I related to the beginning of the book club when we were talking about like the pain and like enemies and stuff. And I feel like my why is really connected to like believing that like I've been through certain things in order to grow. So I like want to put in the work in like this book club and different things like to develop myself, because I want to use like the things that I've been through as to help me, and instead of allowing it to, you know, harm me or bring me down, I want to like transmute that pain.
It's huge. It's huge.
Oop, wrong way.
Any more takers? Okay, I didn't want to just keep talking and talk over anybody. All right, now it's good, guys. I'm glad we, I don't even want to continue to go on in my notes without kind of acknowledge the importance of what's being discussed here, because the crux of my man book is what you guys have just shared, right? Being, wrestling with your why, wrestling with it. It's not, and you'll find that your why is going to continue to evolve as you evolve. But to just know that that's important. It's important for you to be married to that. It's important for your emotion. It's important for you not to suppress your pain, your emotion, and your why, and wear it and live it out loud. So you know what makes you, what makes you uniquely you, right? So you can learn to utilize everything that has occurred in your life up until this point to prepare you for it into your future. And that's literally what chapter 1 is all about, right? Integrating logic and emotion. We get the logical side. You go on YouTube, you go to business school, they're going to always tell you about the logical side. They're going to always tell you about the X's and O's, profit margin, and things of that nature. But what he brings to the table, his unique contribution to understanding the human being and understanding the human being in the context of business, is that emotional side. He says a team that wins in sports has the best game plan. A military unit that wins in battle has the best tactical plan. A business that builds the most long-term value has the best business plan. So I like this chart that he lays out in terms of the emotional side of a business and the logical side of the business. And he said those who understand the things that you and I are discussing right now are those that he refers to as being the audacious few. Those who understand what you guys have shared, your enemy, why you should have an enemy, right? And that thought alone is kind of sort of weird, especially someone who's been socialized like me. And if you have certain spiritual ideas and things of that nature, because you think that that's toxic, but not from his context and how he explained it. Like, what's your target? What's driving you? What's motivating you? Like, man, like if it's poverty, I love what Davion said. If it's racism, right? If it's whatever that thing is, like what's driving you? Like, what problem have you been sent here to solve? What hurt have you been sent here to heal? That's your enemy, right? For me, I come up in a community, I come up in a family who didn't understand money, didn't understand finances, things of that nature. And so financial wellness that's my thing. How do I heal the world in my community in particular? How do I help us have a better understanding and a better relationship with money? And the reason why that's my thing is because I have so many homies that experienced prison time because they were chasing money and nobody in their family understood money, and so they were being exploited. Not that they were bad people. People in our society get manipulated and exploited for lack of money. So because I have that awareness and because I went through that, that's a pain point for me. So that's an enemy for me. So when I'm talking to people in my business space, I come with a whole nother energy. I come with a whole nother understanding, right? Because of what I went through, what the people I know, what they went through. So I carry not only my pain, I carry their pain. So that becomes my enemy, right? So he talks about the emotional side of business, having an enemy, your willpower, having a mission, your mission, right? Even if you're working for somebody, you should have a mission. You should have a mission, and your mission should almost make you the best person in that environment. Not just because of, and they like, man, that person's a great employee, whatever case may be, and they don't realize that really they are the they are the benefactor of your mission. So they're being served based upon you serving yourself. So you hustling for a whole nother reason. You working for a whole nother reason. Why they think it's about them, but it's really about you, and they being blessed by you. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? So that's the emotional side of all of this. Enemy, having a will, having a mission, having a dream. Culture. Culture is a big thing. Most people don't understand that most of what you get out of this life has a lot to do with your culture. And I'm not just talking about culture from an ethnicity standpoint. I'm talking about a personal culture. Your personal culture, your values, your belief, your paradigm, your way of being, your personal way of being. A lot of your results will grow from that. Like if you show up early, to work, that's based upon your personal culture. If you save 20% of your income every time you get a check, that's based upon your personal culture. If health is important to you, that's based upon your personal culture. That's your way of being, right? If you kind to people, you considerate to people, that's probably your personal culture. That's your way of being. And a lot of results you get out of life is based upon your unique culture. And the last point he talked about in terms of emotions, on the emotional side, is your vision. Then he goes on to the logical side of a business plan or the logical side of a person. So next to enemy, he has competition. Competition law goes on the logical side. We understand that. I got competition. Next to will, which is on the emotional side, he has skill. Skill falls in on the logical side of things. Having a plan, that's logical. Developing systems, that's logical. Having a team. Anytime you're trying to create something, you need a team, right? That's why I love you guys' book club, because you guys are trying to grow and learn and develop together. That's team. And then you need capital. So when you're talking about business building, or business development, you hear that type of phraseology and words passed around. I need capital. I need a team. I need a system. I need a plan. I need skills, and I need to understand what my competition is doing. That's all logical. Everyone has that conversation, but nobody's talking about their enemy, their why, the mission, the thing that fuels them, their dream, their culture. Right now, all of you guys probably work for a company or work for an organization. Start paying attention to the culture of your organization. Let me ask that question. I've been talking a long time. Who's aware of the culture of the people who they pull up, who the people who they're connected to?
Before we move on, I think that Kiara might have a question that you might have asked. Okay. I seen the hand raised. And
No, I looked it up from before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that idea of culture. Who's aware of the culture of the organization that they're connected to? Or your personal culture, because I talked about it in two ways. People who pay you money, people who we're connected to, or your personal culture, your own way of being. What you got, Davion?
So as far as my own culture, I write books, right? And so for me, on the inside of our activity books, right, I got my face on it and everything. But my business statement says business is personal. So that's articulating the culture. And under that, it says the more your business undergoes the natural development of increasing in size and service, we work with individuals and organizations to create and implement effective marketing campaign strategies, right? one paragraph, one sentence, a blurb, but it explains the culture, and in that culture I explain who am I serving, what am I here to do, and things like that. So if it doesn't resonate, then the culture might not be for you. But the main thing that I wanted to share was business is personal. I don't understand it, me personally, when people be like, oh, it's just business, but you stepped on my foot. So so it never made sense to me. So I created the culture of business is personal. So I want to share that. So that's my personal culture as far as business.
That's good stuff. Now interpret that for me for a minute. So when you say business is personal, help me better understand that.
So it literally, if we refer back to the chart that we're going over, and we have emotions on the left hand side and we have logic on the right hand side, it's personal. So for example, instead of me just writing 120 pages about networking, only wrote 60, and I created dedicated spaces for people to actually write down their ideas. Like we actually have surveys on the inside of this activity book instead of having just you just reading content, reading content, reading content. Where is the intuition? Where's the space for that? And so instead of just doing it the same way that somebody else is doing it, like John C. Maxwell, he has a whole lot of books. Instead of me just pumping out books like that, it's 2024. So, and instead of trying to be better, I'm trying to be different. And so that's a culture. And so for me, it's personal. So as far as just bringing that around the corner or all the way back around, what do I mean by when I say personal? It takes you to really make your business work, because business is hard no matter if you're selling lashes, lip gloss, books, services, massages, which Germany has those magic hands. I'm just saying, free promotion on one of her testimonies. And it's like she brings herself to that space. So it's what Germany, like you were saying, Mr. John, focus more on your why. Like that's what really makes it you, especially when we dive into storytelling. It's a lot of people that sell insurance, but guess who I have insurance with? It's the story, the story and the why. Wow, there's really that 80% to me.
Yeah. No, it's huge. It's huge. Anybody else? Your personal culture? All right. Yeah, so that's it, guys. The just understanding that, understanding the emotional side, and if you can tap into this, so that's the greatest takeaway from this chapter. If you can tap into that emotional side, the why, you'll learn the how from anybody, but the why is what all of us have to spend time to kind of figure out. That, and that's and so think about that, as you begin to develop your business, and you think about your life, just life. I start off, before you even start thinking about your business, think about your life and understand your life is nothing more, or your business is nothing more than an extension of how you're living your life. Right. So if you're responsible with taking care of things in your personal space, then you'll also be responsible with taking care of things in the marketplace. I teach people all the time about the importance of alignment. Alignment is so important, right? My man refers to it as being integration. It's the same concept. How you integrate parts of your life so that you can show up a certain way in certain spaces, right? So if we're sloppy in our personal lives, 9 times out of 10, we're going to be sloppy in business, right? Because it starts at home, right? So it starts faith over few, rule of much. That's why we often say, despise not humble beginnings. Don't despise if your business is small in the beginning. It needs to be there so you can get your enemy piece right, so you can get the mission piece right, so you can get the dream piece right, and then you get your systems and your teams, all that kind of stuff right. So that just becomes and when you learn to integrate those parts of your life together, then things tend to sort of begin to work out. We got a couple more minutes, Jeremy. I know we're running out of time quickly. All right, last couple points or whatever. In chapter 2, because I know we stayed in chapter 1 quite some time, but chapter 2, um, deals with several things, right? Deals with several things, but mainly, and I'll just touch on it, and we'll speak on it on a high level, and you guys could kind of sort of get off into it on your own. I'm trying to find it real quick as I wrestle with time, fight with time. The chapter's title, Look Back. Man, I wish we would spend more time. Look back to create duration, depth, and magic, right? All right, here's the quote. The further back you can look, the further forward you are likely to see, right? That didn't hit as hard as this piece to me. He said on page number 19, he said, it took a lot of failure for me to understand that the most important data for you to be found this year just passed. Let me try that one more time. He said the most important data or information for you to find in the year just passed. The point that he's making is this, guys. In order to move forward, we have to look back. In order to move forward, we have to look back. That's the point that he's making, right? So the point of this chapter is look back to create duration, right? I've been in business now for 23 years. That's duration. That's duration, right? Depth, right? And now let me not hang my hat on that. Just because someone's been in the game for a long time doesn't necessarily mean that they've grown or they've learned anything. You might meet people and they might say, you know what I've been doing for 15 years. Just because they say that don't mean a whole lot, right? You have to still see what they've been able to produce, what they've learned, who they mentor, how they train, all of that, right? To kind of figure out if what they're telling you, if that person has depth. And that's what he's talking about. Look back to, but in order to achieve that, right? In order to get to duration and achieve depth or magic, he said you have to be able to look back. But we often like to look ahead. So what's in back of us then? What value does the past have? Right? Because we're trying to get ahead, right? I'm trying to keep it moving. I'm trying to get on to the next. So if most of us are spending time to get on to the next, then what value is in back of us then? The value that's in back of us is to look back and see what mistakes did I make back there? What did I fail to do that I said I was going to do? What opportunities did I miss that I could have taken advantage of? And if I take out the time, hit the brakes for a moment and look back and be honest with myself and evaluate what has occurred. And that's the value in looking back. So the past is only good for us to be able to look back and learn from it and then ask ourselves that fundamental question. Don't just look back and stay back there like it's like really that deep. No. If it doesn't engender questions about what has occurred, then we've missed the point. So here's two questions we should ask ourselves. One, if it comes to mind, what did I miss? What did I miss? Right? And the past is trying to tell you that. What did I miss? And what can I learn from that? Right? We just came out. So if you set a goal, if you had New Year's resolution and you didn't hit those and you didn't hit it, pause. Before you set another goal, stop and say, what did I miss? Why did I hit that goal? And allow yourself to come up with those answers. And then say, well, what can I learn from that? Because you might find that you put too much on, you overcommitted. You committed to 7 things, but you only probably should have committed to 2 things. But if we never look back and ask ourselves, what could I have done differently? What did I miss? And what can I have learned from that? Then we'll never come up with the answer like, oh, I overcommitted. It's not that I couldn't get it done. I overcommitted. So that's why this chapter is critically important, guys. And I know we're up on time here, but this is a very, 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 very important chapter and a very deep chapter, because it's really about facing the truth about what has already happened. Facing the truth about what has already happened and allowing the past to kind of sort of speak to you. So I know we need to wrap things up, right, Jeremy? You know, I can just keep going. You know, I just keep going and going. You better shut me down. You better shut me down.
You my daddy. You know you my daddy.
Yeah, but as we wrap things up, guys, as we wrap things up, I want to be respectful of your time. As we wrap things up, great book, great chapter. I hate we didn't have an opportunity to spend more time in this particular chapter, but certainly get off into it because he shares a lot of good information. He shares a lot of good information, and I promise you, I'm done after this. Here's what the goal of this particular chapter. I see you, Germany. The goal of this particular chapter, he says, the most important data is to be found in the year that just passed. Again, he's he's making the point of don't ignore your past. Your past will speak values to you about where you are presently and where you're trying to go. So don't ignore it. That's the point, right? Don't ignore what just happened last week. Don't ignore just what happened last month. So that's the goal of the chapter. And part of the way we get to the duration and the depth, you have to train your brain to play the long game. You have to be in the game for the long run. There's no such thing as overnight success. There's no such thing as quick fixes. So you have to always be in, play the long game, right? He talked about depth, duration, and the magic. So you have to play the long game. But in order for us to play the long game, 3 things he points out that we have to learn to avoid. He talks about this on page number 28. We have to avoid winging things, right? Just being a winger, and we have to avoid, and then we have to get into thinking, then doing, right? Sometimes I might be in a thinking space. I don't know where you guys land in that arena. And think about it. Are you a winger? You wing things. You don't properly plan. You just go with the flow. Or are you a thinker? You live too much in your head, and therefore you don't do. It doesn't translate into actionable items. His point is we have to avoid all those things. We have to get into doing, right? You can't wing a business plan, and you can't just think about a business. You got to think about a business plan. Then you have to begin to execute. So that's the point. So when we learn to avoid some of those critical components, we can get to the point of duration and depth. So that's it, folks. That's about all I got for you for chapter 1 and 2. And the last question I'll leave you guys with, and we said it earlier. I want you guys to think about what pain have you experienced in your life and that you see in this world that you can help heal, because that's going to get you connected to a why, right? That pain was uniquely yours. So ask yourself that question, right? What has touched you in that way? Like the financial piece touched me, right? And why are you here? And in what ways can you heal the world with what you have experienced, right? As you heal, and you get in touch with your why, how can you take that and use that to empower and heal others? I want you guys to think about that till the next time we meet. All right? That's it, guys.
All right. Well, before we go ahead, for one, phenomenal job. Let's go ahead and give it up for our facilitator and our host, John Green. Yes. So we appreciate you. And that was amazing. That was powerful. And we're gonna let that carry over for the next 2 weeks. Before we go ahead and let everybody loose, Drew, can you take attendance for me, please? So that could go in next week's meeting. And then also before we go ahead, we had a few new people here. We actually had 12 people that was on the call. I got a few text messages that said they had to run. Someone said they appreciated the whole book club. and if they're sold. So I'm excited. I think this was amazing. Before we go, if we have any new members in the house, this is like church. Can you take yourself off mute and introduce yourself? And state what you want to gain from the group chat. So John could write it down so we could kind of hold you guys to it, because we are a family and we're gonna continue this book club and we're gonna continue to work together. So if you guys, whoever's new in the chat today, if you could just take yourself on mute and just introduce yourself real quick.
Hi, my name is Kiara James. I am looking forward to just developing, building connections with you all. And yeah, and also staying accountable with like reading and making sure that I'm like really retaining information from things that I read.
Thank you. And also thank you for being engaged today. That was amazing. So thank you for being engaged for the first time. And I see that we have Ashari.
Hi, I'm Ashari. I'm here for the same thing, basically self-improvement, to gain knowledge and to hold myself accountable and learn some new things. I'm glad to be here. And yeah.
We had two other new people here that actually had to leave. But I want to say thank you. And Drew, if you're there for me, if you could go ahead and take attendance. And then also we are going to have a weekly meeting. And I know, Ashari, you sent your about you. I put that in the group chat here. If you could send me your about you, and then we'll put that in the book club and we'll get you all set up. Davion, the man of the hour, the man that makes everything happen. Let's go.
So I'm Davion Thomas. I'm here for the challenge. I'm turning 33 this year in October, and I've been known to take professional development into my own hands, but I'm coming to this place in maturity where it's not as fun, and I want to, and I can't learn or go to that next level in a vacuum. And so I'm here to not just grow naturally and go to that next height, but also how can we do it together? That's where I am. So if I had to articulate like where I am personally, I'm going from apprenticeship to ownership to ultimately stewardship. And so I feel like I'm going from apprenticeship right now to ownership, and then ultimately to stewardship. So that's where I feel like I'm going. But yeah, but the next step is like stop learning in a vacuum and start to really join community. And I'm new to Chicago too. I haven't been here 2 years yet. So excited to be in the space. So thank you all for standing in this water. I appreciate it. And the conversation was rich. I appreciate it.
We appreciate you. Thank you, because we actually using his platform for Mighty Network. So if you guys have Premium Marketing Plus, he's going to be taking care of and facilitating all of our marketing needs. And Erica, he answered our question, but we'll go on. This is recorded, so we figured out some stuff in the folders and the tablet and putting things in tabs. But I appreciate you guys today. Today has been a rich conversation. I'm gonna let you guys meditate and sleep on that. I thank you so much, Dad, John, for being able to host and facilitate and give us more information and insight where we needed. Be well, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Same time in 2 weeks. Drew, I hope you got down the count. Have a wonderful evening,
Bye.
everyone.
Have a good one.
Bye, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the week.
You too.
Peace.